Hello, Algebra 1 students. In this video, we are going to solve one-step equations. Okay, so by the end of the video, you're going to solve a one-step equation using one variable. To do this, we need to isolate the variable. That is the goal. Okay, what do we mean by isolate? We need to get it by itself, all alone. In this case, like you see the x on the island, it's all by itself. Okay, in order to do that, you need to know the inverse operations because you're going to get equations that have addition or subtraction, multiplication, division. So you need to know what to do to perform the opposite of that. So here you can see if addition means you're going to subtract. If it's being multiplied, you're going to divide. If it's squared, you're going to square root it. These are all the opposite. We call those the inverse operations. All right, so let's look at an example here. What is the solution of x plus 13 equals 27? So the variable x is being added to the 13. So we need to isolate the x, get it by itself. Well, that means we have to get rid of the positive 13. We have to undo the addition by subtracting 13 on both sides. Okay, so this leaves us with a positive 13 minus 13 is just a 0, but we're not going to put 0. We don't need to. We're just going to leave it alone, cancel it out. So we're left with x equals 27 minus 13, which is 14. Okay, so let's look at another example. How about when we need to use addition? So we have a negative 7 equals b minus 3. Our goal, again, is to isolate the b. Well, in this case, the variable is b. To get that by itself, we have to undo the subtracting of the 3, which means we have to add 3 to both sides. Okay. Now, if you remember, this is the golden rule to algebra. You have to balance both sides of the equation. What you do on one side, you must do on the other. So negative 7 plus 3, that will give us a negative 4 equals b. Because what happens is the negative 3 and the positive 3 cancel out. What is the solution of 1/2 equals y minus 3 over 2? Well, you got some fractions here. Don't be alarmed. We all can do this easily. So we have to undo the subtracting of the the subtracting of the 3 over 2 to isolate that y. So we're just going to undo subtraction by adding 3 over 2 to both sides. I'm going to write it like this because we have a fraction. It's just so much simpler when we can view it side by side. Okay, so now we have 3 over 2 plus 1 over 2. Luckily, the denominators match, so we can just easily add them together on top, which gives us a 4 over 2 equals y. The negative 3 over 2 and the positive 3 over 2 cancel out. Now, you're going to want to simplify this. 4 over 2 is actually 2. And then you're done. All right, using multiplication, what is the solution of x over 4 equals negative 9? So we have a division problem here. Okay, so our variable x is being divided by 4. So to undo division, we're just going to have to multiply. Now, if you remember in prior videos, to figure out a fraction like this, you just have to multiply by its denominator. So we're just going to multiply by 4 on both sides. The 4's cancel out, and then you're just left with x equals negative 36. Okay. Solving an equation using division. So in the prior one, we looked at when something was being divided, we had a fraction. Now we have a variable that's being multiplied. So our goal is to isolate this x right here. To undo the multiplication, we need to divide. So we're going to divide both sides. I change my color here. Both sides by 4. That'll get rid of the 4 that's attached to the x. The 4's cancel out, just become a 1, but you don't need to put 1. That would look really silly. That's not something we do in math. Okay, so now you have x equals 6.4 divided by 4. Use your calculator. You come up with 1.6. All right, let's look at the next one. What is the solution of 10 equals 15x? Again, we're going to isolate that variable, which is an x here. It's being multiplied by 15, so we got to undo the multiplication by dividing it by 15, but we need to do that on both sides, right? What we do on one side, we must do on the other. So 10 divided by 15, we'll just put that for now. I'm going to tell you, it needs to be simplified, but we'll get to that in a minute. Equals, the 15s that cross off, they become a 1, but we're not going to put the 1. We're just going to put x. So 10 over 15, I'm going to actually divide this out by 5 because I know that that's the highest number that'll go in both. So we're left with 2/3. Our answer is 2/3 equals x. Okay, solving an equation using reciprocals. Now this is just saying that we now have a multiplication by a fraction. If you noticed here, this is a fraction being multiplied by the variable. All we're saying, well, so we know that the rule to undo the multiplication is to divide. Well, we have a fraction. If we were to divide 4/5, oh, sorry, I should use a different color so y'all can see. 4/5 divided by 4/5 m, we can't do that, right? Because if you remember correctly, when we divide fractions, we have to keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep this one. We're going to change this to multiplication. So actually, I'm going to put this in parentheses so you guys can see. And then we're going to flip our number. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite this. But remember, what you do on one side, you must do on the other. So I'm going to actually, I have to multiply this. Oops, that shouldn't be a 5. It should be a 4. I'm going to multiply that side by 5/4. So look what happens. These 4s that cross off and the 5s that cross off. You're just left with a 1, basically. But we're not going to put the 1. M equals 28 times 5 over 4. So a couple of things. You could take 28 and multiply by 5 and then take that big old number and divide by 4. But it's probably just simpler if you just ask yourself, well, how many times will 4 go into 28? Well, it can go in there one time. And then 28 divided by 4 will just simply give us 7. And then 7 times 5 is 35. Cool, right? Of course, you can use your calculator just to make sure you got that right. So now let's look at the next example. We have 12 equals 3/4 x. So then we want to undo the multiplication of that fraction by dividing, right? So we need to isolate this x here. So we're going to have the same problem again. This time though we have 12, the whole number is on the left. That's the only difference here. 12 equals, remember it's going to be 3/4 x. To undo that, we're going to do the reciprocal. That just means that we're flipping this, okay? We're going to flip it, but multiply it. We're going to do it on both sides. All right. So now let's look at this. You could take 4 multiplied by 12. That will give you 48. Divide that by 3. But it's so much simpler if you just take the 3. You figure out, oh, well, that goes into 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16 equals x. Because remember, these cross off. Okay, and you can always check your work. Let's do that just so we know we got this correct. Then this is going to be 16. 12 equals, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 4, and there you go. That comes out correct. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.